afternoon. I'm Chairman Healy, and I welcome you to the Public Safety Committee meeting of March 3rd, 2021. Our first order of business is a roll call.
Mr. Healy,
Here.
Mr. Dibble,
Here.
Mr. Decker,
Here.
Mr. Harris,
Here.
Mr. Havey,
Here.
Mrs. Hopkins,
Here.
Mr. Crandall.
Here.
7 members present.
Thank you. Our first department head up is Public Defender Barb Kelly. Is Barb here? And she is not here. You'll find her report included in your packet. If anybody has any questions regarding the report, they can contact Barb, and if it's something that has to be addressed, we can address it at next month's meeting. And we'll go on to Emergency Management and Fire Director Jeff Lucky. Jeff? And we have Jeff's deputy, Bonnie. Thank you, Bonnie.
Hi. Hello? Push the red. Thank you.
Push the same button to turn it off.
Okay. Jeff is out on a call. He got called out for an emergency, so he's not in the office at this time, so I'm covering for him.
Yes, and for the folks who are listening in, you might give your full name and your position there.
Bonnie Van Housen, Assistant Director to the Office of Emergency Services.
Thank you very much.
The report is attached. A couple things are that we've been covering with the vaccinations with the Department of Health all month last month. We have been doing, he's been working, we both have been there. And last Friday, actually, our whole office ended up working there because Shelley actually come up because they were shorthanded and needed somebody else. So all 3 of us have been working those. We also are working on the New York State LMS system that they're changing all of our firemen over to a new training software, I guess you want to call it, where all of their trainings will be in one area for all the different courses on different levels, and we can be able to access it better. So we've been doing some training with that so that we can assess it and they can assess it.
Okay. Is there anything else you wish to highlight in the report?
Jeff's been going to a lot of fires, not good fires. He's had a fatality and a couple of barn fires, and so he's been out busy with that and out with it, helping with the state investigations that have come in from that. So other than that, it's daily
Okay.
business as is.
Anything not in the report that you wish to comment on?
No.
No. Does the committee have any questions for Bonnie?
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, Mr. Decker?
noticed on Jeff's report, anybody else can see it, on Sunday the 21st, he attended the State Fire Course Ice Water Rescue Training. He actually did it 2 days, Saturday and Sunday. And I joined him over on Cuba Lake on Sunday afternoon, and it was very interesting to see all the procedures that they go through and all the tactical and technical work that goes into making a ice water rescue. We had 12 inches of ice, which is not common for an ice water rescue. Normally it's a lot thinner than that, and you're rescuing somebody that's actually drowning in floating ice. But they reenacted it as close to live as they could, and it was very interesting to watch. I recommend anybody gets a chance to see one in the future. And it also, they use some of the same equipment on their swift water rescues that they use on the ice.
Correct.
Well, I think a lot of people don't realize how much training our volunteers have to do in order to keep up with all the services that they supply to the public.
It's hundreds of hours.
Yeah.
And some of the people are getting burned out. There was one gentleman said that he was not going to re-up again, I guess, was the word to use. Just because of the amount of time it takes. He's a young man, he's been doing this for quite a while, but it takes time away from his wife and family, and it's overbearing.
Just to start out with, speaking of the training, the one thing to start out with is that they have to take a BFO class. That's a basic exterior firefighters operations class, and that alone is 79 hours And that's just the beginning to be able to go onto the fire scene and do anything. From there, they have to do an IFO class, which is interior, which is another 49 hours. And the ice rescue and all of that is above and beyond all of that. And the ice rescue we try to offer every year if the ice obliges us.
Well, thank you for both for pointing that out, and many thanks to our volunteers in the community.
Are these volunteers reimbursed in any way for their expenses?
No. Some departments will do something, but nothing is standard. I'm a assistant director or assistant chief in the Rushford department. We don't do anything back for ours. They don't have the treasury to do it. Most of them don't have that kind of background to do it.
Bonnie, this is Legislator Decker again. They have to pay for some of their equipment and some of their materials too, right? On their own?
Correct. Their firefighting gear is usually for them. If you don't have, depending on the department, we had a person that took ice water rescue years ago. He paid for all of his own because it is so expensive. And at that time, the department didn't have the money and he wanted to join a team for it. So it all depends on the department. But yes, a lot of them do have to, if you get into specialty stuff, there is stuff you have to pay for yourself.
Okay. Thank you, Bonnie. Next up is the monthly report of the district attorney. I don't see the district attorney here. Once again, if you have any questions regarding his report or any other matters before his office, you can address them with him, and if needs be, we can bring them up next month. Next, Brian Perkins, Stop DWI Coordinator. And Brian is here. Good afternoon, Brian.
Good afternoon, everybody. Am I supposed to do something with the card? Or?
No, your mic's on. We'll turn it back on. Whenever it's red, it's on.
Okay, all right. Well, anyway, yeah, thanks for having me. Happy to be back in here again. You do have my report. I don't necessarily have anything else to add to it. We'll just point out that our victim impact panels have still been going. Attendance hasn't been picking up any. We do still have some that I haven't seen that were from the past year that were either sentenced, some of them even before COVID, but their panels all got canceled while things were shut down, or the courts weren't sentencing at the time. So we're still got some that we've got to get caught up with, but they'll get in with us. We've been catching the ones that do come in as they come. I did hear a couple people reference that they had done their courses online, and generally that's something that the state had tried to put out to the courts and things that wouldn't be accepted. Some courts, I guess, have been making exceptions because of the pandemic. So we're trying to push them into, or advise them that we would still prefer they do the in-person ones, even in the capacity that we're doing them, because there's definitely more accountability there of who is there, are they paying attention. The fear is that if someone's doing it at home online, that they're clicking buttons, not really paying attention, and just kind of going through the motions. So that's really the bulk of what's been happening. We're moving ahead into this year, and we did have a crackdown event during the Super Bowl. The next one we would be able to do is St. Patrick's Day, and then there's a couple more coming up as the nicer weather hits.
Anything else you wish to comment on your report or otherwise?
No, sir.
Okay. Do any of the committee members have any questions?
Mr. Chair, I have a question. Mrs. Hopkins?
Yes.
Brian, what recourse do you have for someone who is not complying with attending the victim income, I can't say it, the VIPs?
So us in our department, we really don't have much. As far as the victim impact panel goes, we're more providing that service to the people. It's a function, it's something that's
part of their sentencing.
Yeah, it's
isn't
part
it?
of their sentencing, so it'd be up to the court to enforce whether or not they're actually coming. We're kind of just providing the service and relaying back to the courts what
All in favor, say aye.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes.
I do have one.
Oh, yes, Mr. Decker.
Sheriff?
Yes,
Okay. Can you hear me,
yep,
Sheriff?
I can hear you.
Okay. I stated this once before with this preparedness plan. I'm very concerned that this is going to lead to reform. You know, the reform that they're talking about is defunding the police and the sheriffs. And I hope that we have some people that are watching this closely, because it's a real fear that what's going on nationwide is gonna come back to haunt us here in Allegheny County.
Yeah, we're keeping a close eye on it with the Sheriff's Association. But you know, there's a lot of things in it that we actually agree with. And it's just a lot of the things we had been doing, you know, here long before we had to do this. So it wasn't really a big deal. But there are some things that we do agree with. Just as an example, this morning as I was getting ready to come to work, I heard that dispatch sent the state police to a village in our county for a 13-year-old girl who was uncooperative with her mother and wouldn't go to school. And I thought, you know, that's something that most police officers don't want to go to. So it would be great if there was another, you know, if they sent social services or child welfare or something to that kind of a complaint. You know, I don't believe that the police needed to go to that complaint, but at this point, we're the only ones that respond to things like that. So there's things in there that I think will be good.
Thank
Yes,
you.
and I think we all share the concerns of both the sheriff and legislator Decker addressed there.
These, this directive from Albany, it's the same thing, Kurt, if you will remember, when we were down in NISAC about 3 years ago, when the governor stood up there and shook his finger at us and said that we will have shared services. And here in Allegheny County, we've been doing shared services for a long time with towns and villages, and it's you know, anything to keep us under their control somehow. It's not right. Thank you.
Okay. All right. If there's no other comments, we'll take the vote. We've got the motion and the second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Anybody opposed? Carried. And the second one, Madam Administrator?
The second one is also a requirement, a new statutory requirement, that we have a pandemic response plan. This is like an emergency preparedness plan, only specific to government operations in the event of a severe pandemic. So we have taken the approach that this future pandemic will be even more severe than COVID, and we've written some operations that would respond to such a pandemic with a step-down procedure if it was less severe. So it's a very fluid document because we don't know what the next pandemic will be. But it does incorporate a lot of the practices that we had over this past year and some future ones that we could see happening. And I want to thank Bobby Budinger and Heather Badeau and Jody Adams and Keir Durham for putting this together. And again, utilize the planning department to actually draft and organize the document. They did a very nice job.
Yes. And thanks again to everybody involved for a lot of hard work in a short period of time. I'll entertain a motion.
So moved, Mrs. Hopkins.
Thank you, Mrs. Hopkins. Is there a second? Mr. Havey? Any discussion? All in favor, say aye. Anybody opposed? Carried. Is there anything else to come from the administrator's office?
Not today.
Not today, okay. Any old business to be brought before the committee? Any other new business to be brought before the committee? Anything for the good of the order? Then the chair will entertain a motion for adjournment. Moved by Mr. Harris, seconded by Mr. Dibble.
Mr. Chairman? I
Yes,
had a question for good of the order, if I may.
all right, before we adjourn?
Yeah, I see the Buffalo paper yesterday talked about how bad we've been treating our senior citizens for getting shots for COVID-19. I'm wondering from Bonnie how you're making out for the first responders.
if we're getting the vaccines to the people or not.
Bonnie, would you care to address on that?
We can probably hear from the DOH later on in the Human Services meeting from Tyler, but see what's going on with that department through OFA.
I think the first responders are doing pretty well at getting their inoculations. They started out getting theirs at the Jones Memorial in the beginning of January. I had mine the very first day they were out. The fire department, there's some that are still lacking, but we send the link out every Wednesday when it comes out, or so it's available to them every Wednesday when it is open through the Department of Health. And there is some other places that they can go and get them. So I think that we're doing pretty good with them so far.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Yes, I think we've done a pretty good job with what vaccine has been available to us. All right, if there's nothing else, we had a motion and a second for adjournment. All in favor, say aye. Any
Aye.
opposed? Carried. We're adjourned.